Have you ever done something so reckless, so completely out of character, that you shocked even yourself? Something that, if anyone found out, would ruin everything you've spent decades building? I have. Please like and subscribe to this channel to motivate me to keep sharing my stories with you. Thanks for subscribing. Now, let's continue with the story. And it wasn't some fleeting moment of madness, a drunken mistake, or a heat-of-the-moment decision. No. It happened again and again, right under my own roof, with a man I was never supposed to look at twice. My name. That's not important. But I'm a 60-year-old woman, married for nearly 40 years to a man who barely sees me anymore. I have 3 grown children, all scattered across the world, too busy with their own lives to remember that their mother still exists beyond the occasional phone call. And my husband? Richard. A respected businessman. A provider. The father of my children. But also a man who has long since stopped being my lover. It didn't start as some grand seduction. I didn't wake up one morning thinking, today, I'm going to betray my marriage. No, it crept up on me, bit by bit, until I was too far gone to stop. It began with loneliness. That kind of loneliness that settles in your bones, that makes the walls of your home feel like a beautifully decorated prison. My house is large, too large for just the 2 of us now that the kids are gone. Richard is always working, traveling, attending business meetings, coming home late, eating dinner in silence, and falling asleep before I can even say goodnight. He hasn't touched me in years. Not really. Then there was him. James. My gateman. He had been working for us for 2 years, and in that time, I had barely noticed him. He was just there opening the gate when I left, closing it when I returned. A quiet man, never intrusive, never disrespectful. But then something changed. It started on a humid afternoon when the power went out again. I was outside, fanning myself on the veranda, frustrated beyond words. Richard had promised to get a generator months ago, but like everything else that involved my comfort, he had forgotten. James appeared, holding a small rechargeable fan. You can use this for now. I looked up, surprised. You had this all along. He smiled, that slow, easy smile that made his skin glow in the sunlight. Yes, it's mine, but I figured you might need it more. I took it, grateful, and that was the first real conversation we ever had. After that, I started noticing him more. The way his white shirt clung to his broad chest when he washed the car, the curve of his strong arms when he swung the gate open. He was young, much younger than me, but not a boy. He had the quiet confidence of a man who knew his own strength but never flaunted it. And then, one evening, everything changed. Richard had been gone for 3 days, traveling for work. I had spent the day alone, restless, watching the rain pour down in thick sheets. I couldn't even go out, I was trapped. By evening, I went to check on James. I told myself it was just to be polite. Just to see if he was comfortable in the tiny security house by the gate. He said when he saw me, surprised. Is everything okay? I nodded. I just wanted to check on you. He smiled again, that same gentle smile. I'm fine, But you shouldn't be out here. The rain might get you. I should have left. I knew I should have. But I lingered, watching the way the dim bulb in his small room cast shadows over his strong features. I don't know what made me do it, loneliness, boredom, or something deeper, something I had ignored for too long. I reached out, my fingers barely brushing his arm. His skin was warm, solid. He stiffened, his eyes darkening as he looked at me. He said, his voice low. A warning. But I ignored it. I stepped closer, my breath uneven. I was 60. But in that moment, I didn't feel old. I felt alive. And then he kissed me. God help me, I kissed him back. I wish I could say I pulled away. That I came to my senses, apologized, and ran back into my house, locking the door behind me. That would have been the sensible thing to do. But I didn't. James hesitated for only a moment, his breath warm against my lips, his body tense as if waiting for me to change my mind. But I didn't move. I didn't push him away. If anything, I leaned in, just a little. Just enough to make it clear that I wanted more. And then he really kissed me. It was nothing like the dry, distracted pecks Richard used to give me before rolling over in bed. No, James kissed me like he had been holding himself back for a long time. His lips were firm, his hands strong as they settled on my thighs. And God help me, I was melting. I had never been that wet. I felt his banana. It was hard. I wanted it so bad. I should have been ashamed. I should have been thinking about Richard, about my marriage, about my age. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Not the years between us, not the way my hands trembled as I clutched his shirt, not even the little voice in my head screaming that this was wrong. All I could think about was how good it felt to be wanted. I don't know how we made it inside his tiny security house, but suddenly, I was there, pressed against the rough wall, my blouse undone, his hands exploring my body with a hunger I had long forgotten. My skin burned where he touched me, and when his mouth found my neck, I let out a gasp that sounded nothing like the woman I thought I was. "Are you sure?" he murmured, his voice thick with restraint. I should have said no. I should have ended it right there. But my hands were already pulling at his belt, my lips already pressing against the warm skin of his throat. "Yes," I whispered. The way he undressed me, slowly, carefully, as if savoring every inch of my aging body, made my heart twist. I had spent so long feeling invisible, feeling like nothing more than a wife, a mother, a woman past her prime. But James, he looked at me like I was desirable. Like he wanted me. And that was all it took to shatter whatever resistance I had left. His hands traced the curve of my hips, his fingers trailing down my stomach, teasing, exploring. When he finally slipped between my thighs, I gasped, my body arching into him, desperate, greedy. "You're beautiful," he murmured against my skin. I almost laughed. Beautiful? No one had called me that in years. And then I stopped thinking altogether. What happened after was not soft or slow. It was raw, desperate, filled with the urgency of two people who knew they had no business doing what they were doing but couldn't stop themselves. His body pressed against mine, his breath hot against my skin as he claimed me, again and again, until I was shaking beneath him. By the time it was over, I was spent, my body limp, my mind a blur. James held me, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my back, as if he couldn't quite believe what had just happened either. I should have left then. I should have dressed, walked back to my house, and never looked back. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed. And that was the beginning of the end.